What's going on, guys? It's Greg here, aka NYPrepper. It is Friday, May 16th, 2025, and I have some breaking news to share with you guys. Right now it is 16:02 Eastern Time here in the United States, and we have some major breaking news coming in from Europe and the Middle East. So I want to start with Europe first. So earlier this morning and late last night, we had a large number of U.S. Air Force cargo planes fly to Lithuania, right on the border of Belarus. This is the first time I've seen this many C-17 Globemasters fly to Lithuania in such a short span of time. So here you can see 6 C-17s flying from Ramstein to some bases near Vilnius. So this is very, very concerning. It means that the US and NATO are concerned about a possible attack on Lithuania. We know that Belarus and Russia have been massing their forces along the border of Lithuania in this area where these C-17s were moved to. Now, these C-17s are the second largest military cargo plane in the U.S., so they're probably carrying something very heavy or a large amount of something. Okay, could be ammunition, could be air defense missiles, who knows, okay, tanks, but they flew from Ramstein directly to the Vilnius area of Lithuania. Vilnius is the capital of Lithuania, so maybe they're concerned about Belarus and Russia going for the capital of Lithuania, which is literally just 20 or 30 miles from the border of Belarus, okay? And then here we have some reconnaissance that was going on at the same time. You can see a U.S. Navy sub-hunter off the coast of Poland, keeping an eye on Russian subs. And then we had a NATO AWACS plane in northern Poland, and then a private U.S. recon plane circling around Kaliningrad. And then we also had 2 more C-17s fly from Mildenhall all the way to Kaunas. Okay, there's a major NATO base in Kaunas, okay? That's actually where the largest NATO deployment is in Lithuania, is in Kaunas. So this is very, very concerning. Okay, Mildenhall is one of the most important bases in the UK, and then Ramstein, one of the most important US bases in the world. Okay, so they had to be moving something of very high strategic value if they were flying that many C-17s from Ramstein and Mildenhall to Lithuania. Absolutely insane. And then we also had some kind of Russian VIP fly from Moscow to Minsk. This could be the Russian defense minister. It could be Putin. Who knows? But this was around the same time as all those C-17s were being moved to Lithuania. So something is going on over here, guys. Okay, Russia has drafted 150,000 troops through July, and Putin now wants a ceasefire. If the ceasefire in Ukraine goes through and they freeze the front lines where they are, that's a huge victory for Putin. And what Putin's going to do is he's going to rebuild his military, rebuild his missile forces that he used during the last 3 or 4 years. I can't remember. Yeah, we're up to 3 years now of this war. And this update was sponsored by EMP Shield. Guys, EMP Shield has created a special discount just for you, the listeners of the NYPrepper channel. If you go to empshield.com and use the promo code NYPrepper, you can get 15% off your entire order. And why do you need an EMP Shield? Well, this is a special device to protect your vehicle, your RV, your solar generators, your radios from an electromagnetic pulse, which could be caused by a solar flare or potentially a rogue country like North Korea detonating an electromagnetic pulse weapon over the United States that's mounted onto a satellite. So protect your vehicles, protect your RV, protect your radios, protect your generators with an EMP shield. Use my promo code NYPrepper to get 15% off. Installation is super simple. This is a veteran-owned business, 100% American-made, and the EMP shields have been tested by the military, okay? And free shipping is included to the entire continental United States. And the link and the promo code are in the description below this video. Very, very concerning, because then he can attack Lithuania and the Baltics after reconstituting, okay? And that could be part of his plan, is to basically freeze the lines where they are in Ukraine, cut his losses there, accept whatever gains he's made in Ukraine, which is quite substantial. He's taken 20% of Ukraine's territory. He's got a land connection now to Crimea. That would be a massive victory for Russia. And then he would just build up his forces, which they've already been building up in Belarus for the last 3 years. They've been massing troops in Belarus on the border of Lithuania and Poland and Latvia, and also on the border of Estonia. And then they could potentially attack this fall. Okay, it's only 20 miles to the capital of Lithuania. Okay, that is very, very close, and there's no large NATO battalions between Vilnius and the border of Belarus. Okay, it's wide open, so we have to be on high alert. And U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio said yesterday that Iran is now at the threshold of possessing nuclear weapons, and the ceasefire between Pakistan and India will remain in effect until May the 18th. So through the rest of the weekend, through Sunday, the ceasefire will remain in effect. We'll have to see if it continues next week. And now we know that India and Pakistan were very close to a nuclear exchange. Various sources are reporting that some of the Indian strikes on Pakistan came very close to nuclear command and control centers in Pakistan. Okay, and so then the Pakistanis met with their nuclear war committee, and they were debating on using nukes against India, and then suddenly the U.S. intervened and there was a ceasefire. But we were very, very close. So make sure you guys are prepared. Check out my nuclear war survival videos so you understand all the principles related to nuclear war and radiation, and so you can arm yourself with knowledge so you know how to react if there is a nuclear exchange, which would affect us here in the U.S. because the radiation would go up into the atmosphere. Okay, so make sure you guys are continuing to prepare. We have all these war fronts around the world that are continuing to escalate and expand, and when the lights go out, when the fallout starts to drop from the sky, you're going to have what you're going to have, and that's it, okay? By then, it's going to be too late to run to the store and get one more item. So get everything you need now. And the Israeli military has begun a massive invasion of the northern Gaza Strip as part of Netanyahu's plans to fully occupy the Gaza Strip. Ground forces of the IDF were deployed into northern Gaza last night and are ordering residents to evacuate to designated safe zones, while drones equipped with loudspeakers are urging residents in other parts of Gaza to remain indoors. Local sources report that multiple arrests have been carried out in the city of Beit Lahia, and that Israeli tanks are advancing near the Gaza city and Khan Yunis. Okay, so Netanyahu wants to fully occupy the Gaza Strip and turn it into a security zone and relocate the Palestinians to southern Gaza near the border with Egypt. Okay, so we'll have to wait and see what happens and how this is going to affect the timeline for an Iranian strike, okay, if Israel wants to strike Iran. But they could potentially do both simultaneously, but I think Israel's going to wait until they wrap up most of their operations in Gaza before they do any kind of strike on Iran. And here we have video footage showing all of the Israeli tanks and armored bulldozers getting ready to go into Gaza in this massive staging area. Look at all those tanks there. So Israel is not messing around. And several Israeli airstrikes targeted Gaza City, Khan Yunis, and Beit Lahia. There's also artillery fire and machine gun fire from helicopters being reported. And Trump said yesterday that a deal with Iran is very close. And I want to remind you guys that Netanyahu said that regardless of what deal the U.S. makes with Iran, Israel will act on its own to protect itself. Okay, so just because Trump strikes a deal with Iran doesn't mean Israel's not going to go in and take care of the Iranian nuclear program themselves. Okay. And Spanish Prime Minister Pedro Sanchez called Israel a genocidal state and reaffirmed Spain's decision not to resume trade with Israel. Wow. And the Pentagon has developed a draft architecture and plan for the proposed Golden Dome air and missile defense system following Trump's January 27 executive order. The system's cost is unknown, but the Congressional Budget Office estimates it could be as high as $542 billion over 20 years, so that's $500 billion, with the space-based interceptors segment potentially costing $161 billion at the low end. So that's like basically an entire year's worth of defense spending. That's how much we spend in 1 year, is like $850 billion. And Trump is actually going to jack that up to $1 trillion. We're officially going to reach $1 trillion next year in defense spending, okay? A record. So even though Trump said he was going to trim down defense spending over the next 5 years, it looks like he's now going to be increasing it to record levels, guys. So get prepared. World War III is on the horizon. And Russia's ground forces participating in combat against Ukraine amount to upwards of 640,000 soldiers, according to Ukraine's Commander-in-Chief Oleksandr Syrsky, who said this yesterday. Okay, so nearly 750,000 soldiers fighting in Ukraine on Russia's side. Guys, that's like World War II or Korean War levels, okay? That's how serious this war is. We don't understand how serious this war is because we're halfway across the world and we're living comfortably here, but there's literally a full-fledged war going on in Europe. This should be very, very concerning to everybody, okay? And Zelensky and Erdogan met in Turkey in Ankara yesterday. Erdogan stressed his support for Ukraine's territorial integrity yet again, and he made it clear again that Crimea is a part of Ukraine. And Secretary of State Marco Rubio refused to attend peace negotiations with Russia today because he said that the Kremlin sent a lower-level group. Wow, so Rubio protesting and not attending the negotiations with Russia today. Very, very interesting, kind of a tit for tat. And the Ukrainian military is reporting that they lost another F-16 last night during a combat mission. The pilot successfully ejected and was rescued, and it was not shot down, but it had a malfunction. According to preliminary data, the pilot used onboard weapons, including an aircraft cannon, to destroy 3 aerial targets and was working on a 4th when an emergency developed on board. Okay, sounds like they were using it to shoot down Russian drones with the autocannon, and something happened. And Putin fired his commander of the Russian land forces, General Oleg Salyukov. Very interesting. And last night there was another massive drone attack on Ukraine, and Ukraine retaliated after by targeting Crimea. They hit a massive ammunition depot belonging to the 126th Coastal Defense Brigade of the Russian Black Sea Fleet. stationed near Perevalna in Crimea. So that is absolutely huge. The Ukrainians hitting this massive ammunition storage site. They also targeted several airfields. We're hearing that explosions were reported near the Belbek and Kacha military airfields in Sevastopol, as well as near Cape Fiolent, Balaclava, and Bakhchisirai. Okay, so very, very serious situation. During these peace talks, Russia and Ukraine are still exchanging drones, okay? And when we say drones here in the U.S., it kind of waters down how powerful these weapons are. Okay, these are drones the size of a Cessna plane, okay? And they carry 200 or 400 pounds of explosive material. They're basically like a flying missile, okay? They're basically as powerful as a missile, a cruise missile, okay? They just are, the warheads are mounted on a drone instead of on a missile. So these are basically like missiles, okay? And so I'm telling you guys, there's probably not going to be a ceasefire. If there is, I would be extremely skeptical of what Putin's intentions are. And like I said, he's massing the forces on the border of Lithuania, and we saw all those C-17s last night scrambled to Lithuania from Ramstein and Mildenhall. And the Guyana Defense Force reported that troops carrying out patrols along the Cuyuni River on the Venezuelan border were attacked 3 times in a 24-hour period this week by armed men dressed as civilians on the Venezuelan side of the river. No injuries were sustained during the attacks. Very interesting. And the U.S. Navy wants sea-launched nuclear-armed cruise missiles amid rising tensions. Services Committee Vice Admiral Johnny Wolf mentioned that the U.S. Navy is set to make a milestone decision in fiscal year 2026 on the sea-launched cruise missile nuclear program aimed for delivery by 2034. According to Wolf's statements, the decision marks a pivotal step in developing a survivable, flexible nuclear strike option to address regional deterrence gaps, particularly amid growing adversarial capabilities. In his statement, he states that the sea-launched cruise missile nuclear program has already established a dedicated office and is conducting extensive technical engineering and integration assessments across missile, fire control, warhead, and submarine systems. However, the statement notes key challenges such as adapting a nuclear warhead to a conventionally designed cruise missile and ensuring compatibility with Virginia-class submarines while maintaining nuclear surety and minimizing operational disruptions. Despite those challenges, the statement says infrastructure development at strategic weapons facilities is already underway to support storage and handling without affecting existing Trident missile programs. It stresses that continued funding and rapid workforce scaling are deemed critical to meeting the 2034 initial operational capability goal. The statement notes that the milestone decision in 2026 will formally initiate acquisition and solidify program execution strategy, setting the stage for one of the U.S. Navy's most consequential nuclear modernization efforts in decades, amid rising strategic competition and the need for credible, deployable deterrent options in the region. Contextualizing the impetus behind the revamped SLCM-N program, the U.S. Department of Defense 2024 China Military Power Report states that China possesses 600 operational nuclear warheads and will have over 1,000 by 2030. The report also says China is developing a nuclear triad alongside developing advanced delivery systems such as fractional orbital bombardment systems and low-yield warheads for regional deterrence and proportionate response. So this is huge news, guys, okay? They're saying that China is going to have over 1,000 deployed warheads, guys. That's almost as much as we have and almost as much as Russia has. Russia and the U.S. officially have around 1,500 deployed warheads, although it could be more now that the START II treaty was scrapped, okay, and China's going to have over 1,000. I think they're probably already close to that, and I've heard more realistic numbers of like 1,500 by 2030. So basically, China's going to have almost as much, if not the same amount of deployed warheads as we have. And in addition to that, they're working on developing a full triad. Okay, so triad means they can deliver nukes from air, land, and sea. Right now, they have mostly land-based missiles and some submarines that can launch missiles, but they're more short-range. And they're working on a stealth bomber, but they're also working on a fractional orbital bombardment system, which is very concerning. And that goes back to the Soviet times. The Soviets developed a fractional orbital bombardment system, and basically what that is that the ballistic missile, rather than traveling on a traditional arc trajectory, which we can calculate where it's going to land and stuff like that, this missile would go up into low Earth orbit and circle the Earth for a certain period of time and then randomly come down from orbit. So it makes it much harder for us to predict where the missile's going to land and gives us much less warning time, okay? And so one of the ways that the U.S. wants to deal with this is to make a sea-launched nuclear-armed cruise missile that can be deployed on all of our attack subs, our Virginia-class attack subs, which would greatly expand our nuclear arsenal. And this is actually ingenious because we already have so many cruise missiles on these attack subs, and we have so many attack subs, all we have to do is just modify those missiles to carry small nuclear warheads, okay? And so that would give us another option for retaliation or for theater level nuclear exchanges, okay? So this is absolutely huge news, and it's a big sign that the U.S. is concerned about nuclear war. The report points out that despite China's no first use policy, its actions indicate otherwise, saying that it might resort to nuclear weapons use if conventional attacks threaten its nuclear infrastructure or the Chinese Communist Party's regime's survival, particularly in a Taiwan contingency. It adds that the integration of conventional and nuclear capabilities coupled with blurred thresholds for use could complicate crisis management and escalation control. In line with those developments, the 2023 U.S. Strategic Posture Report states that additional U.S. theater nuclear capabilities are needed in Europe and the Indo-Pacific to deter Russia and China, respectively. It notes that such capabilities should be deployable, survivable, and offer variable yield options. It also adds that the U.S. president must have a range of militarily effective nuclear response options to deter or counter limited nuclear use in theater conflicts, highlighting concerns that U.S. deterrence lacks credibility in limited nuclear escalation scenarios where strategic weapons appear disproportionate. So basically, they want to have more tactical nuclear weapons. We don't have a lot of tactical nukes. Okay, NATO has a few hundred tactical nukes, but they're all deployed by fighter jets. Now we're going to have the capability of moving attack subs anywhere in the world and positioning them right off the coast of a country that's acting up and point our nukes at them and basically tell them, listen, if you step out of line, we got multiple subs with hundreds and hundreds of cruise missiles with small nuclear warheads, and we're going to turn all your bases into toast, okay? And we have some major breaking news coming out of CERN. Scientists at CERN have confirmed the successful transformation of lead into gold using the Large Hadron Collider, the world's most advanced particle accelerator, and many people believe that CERN is a gateway to hell. But that's the latest breaking news that I have. I might be back later on tonight with a live update. Tune into my 24/7 live stream for continuing updates. But it's very concerning, all those C-17s going to Lithuania. So until the next time, take care, God bless, and don't forget the 3 P's: prepare, practice, and persevere. And before I continue with the breaking news, I wanted to mention the sponsor for this update, which is NYPrepper Supply. Guys, NYPrepper Supply has brought back their $200 discount on their 3-month emergency food supply. And to get the discount, you got to go to preparewithnyprepper.com, and the link is in the description below this video. That's preparewithnyprepper.com to get $200 off the NYPrepper Supply 3-month emergency food supply. This is freeze-dried food, so it has a 25-year shelf life, and it's all packed within 6 rugged, watertight buckets, so it doesn't take up a lot of space. You can easily fit this in a small closet in a studio apartment. And the food has all of your essential vitamins and minerals and up to 2,000 calories per day. So use the link preparewithnyprepper.com to get the NYPrepper Supply 3-month emergency food supply, 25-year shelf life for just $500. That's $200 off their normal price. So use the link in the description below this video.